This video is to help you with Fair Division 1. Trevante and Chelsea buy a pizza for $16 that is half pepperoni and half veggies. They cut the pizza into 8 slices. If Trevante likes veggie 3 times as much as pepperoni, what is the value of a slice of all veggie for him? So the way I would approach this is to kind of think about this visually and kind of think about what's happening. So if I draw an image of a pizza, and we know that pizza is cut in half, so one half of it is pepperoni and the other half is veggie. It also mentions that not that it's just cut in half, half veggie, half pepperoni. We also know that there's 8 slices, and we know that one of the slices is going to be completely veggie. So I would assume that it's probably cut something like this. And so if we think about each kind of side of the pizza, we know that this pizza total is $16. But we want to kind of think about each one individually, each half individually. So if I think about the pepperoni, so here's a quick little picture of what that might look like. And then I think about the veggie. And I'm in particularly thinking about Trevante's value of each of these pizzas or parts of the pizza, so that we can determine how much he might value one slice of veggie. So it tells us that he values the veggie 3 times as much as the pepperoni. So the veggie is going to be 3 times the pepperoni. We don't know the value of the pepperoni right now because that's what we're trying to find out. So let's say the value of the pepperoni is X. Well, if he values the pepperoni X amount, then the veggie is going to be 3 times that amount. So 3x. So once again, he values the pepperoni at x, whatever that x is. We don't know yet, but we will. But he values it at x. And since he values veggies 3 times as much, the veggie part is going to be 3x. So what is the total? If we were to put this pizza together back into one full set of pizza, our total would be the pepperoni plus the veggie. That's the total value of the pizza. And we know what the total value of the pizza is. The total value of the pizza is $16 because that's how much they paid for it. And so we can solve this kind of, basic equation here by combining like terms and then dividing by 4, finding out that x is going to give us 4. So in this case, we can see that Trevante values the pepperoni pizza, this half of it, this half of this whole pizza, he values this half to be worth $4. That whole half is worth $4, which means if this whole half is worth $4 and there are 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces, that means each piece must be worth $1 to Trevante. However, we're not looking for the value of the pepperoni. We're looking for the value of the veggie pizza. So we want to know how much is each one of these slices worth to Trevante. So if one slice of pepperoni is worth $1 and we know that he values it 3 times as much, that means one slice of veggie is going to be 3 times the value of one slice of pepperoni. And 3 times 1 is going to be 3. So each one is $3. The other way you could kind of think about, trying to figure out the final answer, which we just determined to be $3, would be to think about it as a whole. We said the whole thing for pepperoni was $4. And if we plug that in here, we get that the whole thing of the veggies is $12. So one whole pepperoni was $4. So the whole veggie is $12. But then that's the whole thing. And once again, we need to divide it by 4 because there are 4 slices. And we need to divide by 4 to figure out that one slice is going to give us 3 for one slice. I believe the original video given for this lesson does this here part where you're trying to figure out what the whole thing is and divide it by 4 to get what individual it is. But you could, as I did here, just knowing that one slice is $1, we want 3 times that one slice and multiply by 3. For this one, I'm going to come back to number 2. Number 3, I think, will help with number 2 a little bit as far as explanation. So we have Cindy, Jamal, Monique, and Ryan, and they are dividing up a piece of land using the lone divider method. The lone divider method means that we're taking one person of these 4 people, one person divides it into 4 pieces, and then everyone else kind of looks at the pieces that they divided it up into and decides how much they value each piece. And so these are the values. The values of the 4 pieces of land in the eyes of each player are shown here. One question you might ask yourself is, who did the dividing? Who divided up this land? Well, there are 4 people. And if we think about the land being 100%, and we want to divide that into 4 people, each person is going to get 25%, or their value of the piece of land should be 25% if the land is divided into what they view as being equal shares. And if we look at the values that everyone here has listed, we can see that only one person has actually valued each piece to be equally valued, equal shares, and that would be Monique here. So Monique has all 4 pieces valued at 25%, which means Monique is the person who must have been the divider, the lone divider. So Monique divided it all up, which means Monique will be happy with whatever piece they get because they value each piece to be equal. And remember that these numbers represent the value that that person views it at. The thing about fair division and fair share is that you're dividing things up to be divided as fairly as possible in the eye of the person who's looking at it. And so in this case, Monique values all of them equally. But Cindy does not value them equally, neither does Jamal or Ryan. So our job is to now look at how those 3 people value those pieces and decide who gets what. Now, in order to make sure everyone gets their fair share, we know that fair share is going to be at 25% or higher. Think about fair shares. Fair share isn't going to always equal 25%, but it needs to be at 25% or higher. Not necessarily the highest value for each person, but at 25% or higher. And so the first thing you might want to do is look at how each person valued each piece and decide which pieces did that person value at fair share or higher. So in this case, Cindy valued piece 1 at 24%. That is not equal to or more than fair share. So Cindy believes that piece 1 is not a fair share. It is less than fair share. Not by much, but it's still less than fair share. Same thing with piece 2. Cindy values piece 2 at 21%. And once again, 21% is less than fair share, which would be 25%. So the only pieces that Cindy values at fair share are going to be piece 3 and piece 4. And then let's look at Jamal. Jamal, the same, has all of theirs listed out as valued. So Jamal values piece 1 at fair share. Jamal also values piece 3 and piece 4 at fair share or more. And then Ryan, we're looking for 25%. Ryan values piece 1, not piece 2 because that's less than 25, piece 3, and piece 4. It looks like no one values piece 2 at fair share other than Monique. So that's probably the one Monique's going to walk away with because they feel like it's fair share and no one else does. But this problem doesn't ask us to actually divvy up the information or the pieces. We want to just figure out, assuming that Cindy declares honestly, based on what they value here in the table, which pieces will they declare as the pieces that they are happy with. And in this case, it would be piece 3 and piece 4 because they value it at or more than fair share. And so now that we've kind of looked at how fair share looks like on a table, we can actually start divvying things up in problem number 2. So problem 2 wants us to actually decide what pieces are going to each person so that we can figure out what Monique gets. So in this last problem, similar names. Monique was the divider in this last problem. And it just so happens that Monique, once again, is the divider in this problem. This problem only has 3 people, has Cindy, Jamal, and Monique. So Ryan must be off somewhere else, or maybe he doesn't have to get a piece of this land. Who knows? But it tells us that they're once again going to use the lone divider method. They're going to flip a coin to figure out who's going to be the divider. And Monique wins the coin flips. I assume it's multiple flips because we don't have 3-sided coins. But Monique wins to be the divider and divides up the land equally in their eyes as far as what is fair share to them. And so we're going to look at how Cindy and Jamal view the 3 pieces Monique divided up. Now, we want to keep in mind that Monique already thinks these 3 pieces are fair share. So Monique can be given any of those 3 pieces and will be happy because they value all 3 pieces equally and the same. But Cindy and Jamal do not value them all the same. So our job is to figure out, 1, what is the fair share? What percentage would be a fair share to Monique at least? And that will help us decide what, who would get what as far as with Cindy and Jamal. So fair share is to take the 100% of the land, the whole land, and divide it up equally among 3 people. And when we divide 100 by 3, we get 33.3 repeated percent. One thing I noticed with this program is it does not like it when you put 33%. It wants you to have a decimal. So in this case, we have 0.3. If you had 0.6, it would want you to actually put a decimal for that. So I'm going to skip down here to the bottom where it says what is the value of that piece in Monique's eyes. Well, in Monique's eyes, since Monique divided the whole land into 3 equal pieces, Monique values this, or each piece, to be at 33.3% because it's equal to Monique. They will be happy with whatever piece, which means when we decide who gets what piece, we are only looking at the pieces for each person that's at 33.3 or higher. And so for Cindy, that's going to be piece 1. Piece 2 and 3 are less than 33%. So it's not a fair share for Cindy. For Jamal values piece 2 at more than a fair share, but the other 2 are not. And this looks like it's pretty easy to divide up because each of the 2 here have a preference. Cindy prefers part 1, so piece 1, so Cindy's going to get piece 1. And Jamal prefers piece 2, and so Jamal's going to get piece 2. Monique cut it up evenly. So Monique's happy with whatever, which means piece 3 is what's left, and piece 3 is what Monique is going to go home with. This one is a little bit different from the other ones. We're still looking at dividing things up And once again, it's being divided by a divider-chooser method with kind of thinking about fair share in one person's eyes. So we have Irvin and Jasmine. They want to split a bag of candy. And it's being divided up. We have 100 Snickers, 100 Milky Way, and 100 Reese's. And as far as what Irvin, because it gives us this information with Irvin's value, Irvin seems to value the Snickers, 100 of them, at $2. So 100 Snickers is worth $2 to Irvin. The 100 Milky Way is worth $4 to them, and the 100 Reese's is worth $1 to them. So the question is, how much is one Snickers, one Milky Way, and one Reese's worth? Well, $2 is 200 pennies, and there's 100 Snickers. So 200 pennies divided by 100 Snickers would give us 2 pennies. So this is actually going to be 2 cents each. Same thing for Milky Way. We have $4, which is 400 pennies. 400 pennies divided by 100 is going to give us 4 cents each for each Milky Way. And then the Reese's is $1. That's 100 pennies. 100 Snickers, 100 pennies, meaning 1 cent each. And once again, this is for Irvin's value in Irvin's eye. I assume that since we're trying to figure out if Irvin feels like this is a fair share, that he must not be the divider. Jasmine must be the divider, and we're trying to decide if Irvin feels like it's a fair share for this. Actually, it says right here, Jasmine is the divider. So there we go. Jasmine's the divider, and Jasmine divides up the candy into this as being half based on how much Jasmine values the candy. And so Irvin needs to figure out whether he thinks it's a fair share or not. And looking at these numbers, I would say that Irvin values the Milky Way more than the Reese's. And it looks like there's more Reese's than Milky Way. So it'll be interesting to see if he thinks it's a fair share. To find out if it's a fair share, there are 2 things we need to find. First, we need to find out how much does Irvin value this total to be. So based on how much he values each piece and how many of each pieces are in that half, tells us how much he values that amount as. And we also need to figure out what is a fair share, because in order to determine if it's fair share, I need to know what is a fair share. Well, we find fair shares by looking at how much someone values the item. So here is Irvin's value of each piece of candy. And so Irvin, if we add these up, Irvin values the entire bag at $7. Now, how much did they pay for the bag? I have no idea. But I do know that Irvin values the entire bag to be $7. That's the value of the whole thing. Now, if we're trying to do fair share and divide it up evenly between these 2 people, that means Irvin needs to get half of that value in order to feel like it's fair share. So Irvin is going to want this candy to equal $3.50, which in their mind is half the value of the bag of candy. And so let's calculate. We know that there are 40 Snickers, and Irvin values each Snicker at 2 cents. And so we type that into our calculator, 40 times 2/100, which is 80 cents. And then we'll do the same for Milky Way. There are 20 Milky Way at 4 cents each. and put that in our calculator, and we'll get that that's 80 cents also. And then our last one is Reese's, which of these three is probably my favorite. Snickers would be a close second, but I really like peanut butter. So the value is 1 cent per piece, which would give us 80 cents. So each set of candy bars here is going to be 80 cents in value. So to find the total, we're going to add those three numbers up. And I know that 8 times 3 is 24. So 8/10 times 3 is going to give us $2.40, which looks like it is not a fair share because this value is less than what Irvin values it as. So we're going to say that no, this is not a fair share. For this last one, I'm not going to actually give the answer to this one because the problems are, I think they're all the same. And if you don't get it correct, you can hit reset. You can answer multiple of these as your answer. However, looking at these, not those, this one, and this one, each of those have a particular percentage on it. And so I would assume only one of them would be the answer. And so then you have to decide which one of these would also be an answer. Could be one, could be two, could be all three of them. But to help you with this one, I will encourage you to go back to the introduction video for fair division. Within the first 2 minutes, there are 2 slides that kind of give you some information specifically on what fair division is and what fair division is not. As a quick reminder, I will kind of give you some hints on which ones to really pay attention to. I would read through, I know it's a lot of words on the first couple of minutes because it's really giving you some definition, but I would read through those words and really think about each piece, like read this sentence and then go back and look through those statements and see, does this statement contradict what is on those in the video. But some things I want to highlight would be that fair division is used when parties are non-cooperative. So they've tried some methods and those other methods didn't work. And this method we know will work every time, regardless of who the people are. But it's a good method for these methods would be good for people who are non-cooperative. We also need to know that this group of people have no knowledge of what the others like and that they are rational. So we want to use fair division in those 3 situations specifically. And then the other thing I want to highlight for fair division is that fair division needs to guarantee that each party will receive a fair share that they view as fair. And so I've mentioned this multiple times in this video that fair share is in the eye of the beholder. So does that person view this as fair share? And in this particular problem here, it's looking at 4 people. So do these 4 people view it as fair share? And so the question is, what is fair share for 4 people? And do they view it as fair share? If you had 5 people, fair share would be 25% or 20% for 5 people. So fair share would be 20%. So the question is the fair share going to be exactly 20%, at least 20%, that kind of thing? And in order to help with that question, I want to make note that fair share does not mean that the person is going to get exactly what they're looking for. It doesn't mean that they're going to necessarily get what you would call equitable or equal parts. Because it's all in the eye of the beholder, and it's meant to give each person their fair share, not exactly what they want necessarily. And fair share or fair division does not mean that each person in the party is going to prefer what they got, that they won't prefer what someone else got. And when we do fair division, you might value something at a higher value, but end up with a different piece that is still equal share or fair share, but not the highest valued item. So hopefully this helps you with answering this question. And remember that you can click that button to retry. These numbers here kind of help you figure out how many tries you have left and that kind of thing. So hopefully this helps.